On behalf of TV Tacoma and the League of Women Voters of Tacoma-Pierce County, welcome to this forum for Mayor of Tacoma. Thanks to TV Tacoma for continuing to present these forums. I'm Liz Kernitz-Thurlow, and I will be moderating. The candidates are Victoria Woodards and Steve Haverly. Unfortunately, Steve Haverly is not in attendance, so we'll ask questions just of Victoria Woodards. The general election is Tuesday, November 2nd. You should receive your ballot in mid-October if you're a registered voter. If you're not registered, you may do so at the auditor's office through Election Day. You have up to 2 minutes for opening statements, whatever I give you for questions, and 1 minute for a closing statement. We can be a little lax because there's only one of you. Our timekeeper is Susan Eidenschink. So, Victoria Woodards, your opening statement, please.
Great. Thank you, Liz, and thank you, Susan. What an honor it is to be here with you all this morning. And thank you so much to the League of Women Voters for continuing to educate our community about upcoming elections. And so I really appreciate your leadership. I'm Victoria Woodards, as was already mentioned, and I've had the honor of serving as your mayor for the past 4 years. During that time, I've delivered good paying jobs, made our city greener, engaged our youth, supported our seniors, made sure that we fixed some of our infrastructure, and just continue to work on all the issues of affordability and homelessness and other issues that have plagued our community. However, right now we know that we are dealing with what I call the dual pandemics. That is the pandemic of COVID-19 and the pandemic of systemic racism. And they've been incredibly hard for our community. But what I do know about Tacoma and what I love about this city is that we will get through this, and we will get through this together because we're a compassionate Tacoma. Now, I have to tell you that whether it's the relentless dedication of our volunteers, of our frontline workers, of our firefighters, our police officers, our healthcare workers, our grocery store workers, our bus drivers, I continue to be inspired, and that's why I want to be your mayor again. We've had a tough couple of years, but there's so much more to be done in this city to address the issues that we will talk about deeper this morning. But in order to address those challenges that lie ahead for us, I need your support. So I'm Victoria Woodards. I'm asking for your vote. And as we get into the issues this morning, I'll share with you some more of my thoughts and idea about how we tackle the challenges that lie ahead together. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, now we come to questions. What is the most pressing need in Tacoma, and how do you plan to attack it? 90 seconds.
Thank you. Thank you, Liz. Great question. And it's so hard when you're doing the job every day to pick a pressing need, because I can tell you in any given minute, it's hard to focus on one need because there are so many. But if I had to pick one at this time, I would say it is the issue that plagues us around homelessness and affordable housing. And I think that I imagine you have more questions about it later on in the conversation, but I will be honest, homelessness and affordable housing is one of our biggest issues. And I believe that as we leverage federal, state, and regional partnerships, that we can address this issue together. During COVID, we can see that homelessness has become an even bigger issue in our community because of CDC guidelines and because of the Boise decision, because we see more homeless people on our streets. But even during COVID, we were able to stand up 10 sites in our community, which is temporary emergency micro shelters. We have 2 sites in Tacoma and are looking for more. The other issue that we're facing right now, and is my number one priority, and that is being able to find a place where we can have a low barrier shelter. A lot of the people who live on our streets won't survive in a 10-site shelter or in any of the shelter opportunities that we have because of the many issues that our houseless community faces. So we are working now to really find sites to be able to triage the issues that face our houseless community, and to work closely with our allies who are doing this work alongside of us to be able to provide the opportunities and the support and all of the services that our houseless community needs to be able to thrive again in Tacoma.
Thank you. COVID has changed so many things. Mm-hmm. People ill and dying, Zoom becoming a lifeline, businesses changing or closing, and unfortunately, it continues. What is something that has come out of that, changed how we do things, which you think is good and should be kept, if there is anything? A minute or so.
Sure. Well, I'll be honest. I'm burnt out on Zoom too. Here we are doing this forum in Zoom instead of in the studio when we can be together. And as you all know me, I'm a person who really thrives on being with people. But I will say this: what we found in this Zoom world, and I know that, or just in this virtual world, is that we have the power and the opportunity to engage so many more people. We just finished our climate action plan. And in that presentation of the climate action plan, they talked about how helpful it was to have Zoom and to have this virtual world, because they could reach out to community members who might not have otherwise been able to participate. When I think about our study sessions and our council meetings, while I miss being side by side with my colleagues and being in the chambers, the number of people who call in or who dial in, who either come to testify or share their thoughts on an issue, those numbers have increased. The number of people who watch and engage in city government has increased. So as much as I still like being in person, I know that this virtual world that we found through COVID is never going to go away. And I think that's a good thing, because again, it allows us to engage more of our community. It doesn't take the place of being able to be together in person, but it certainly gives us more opportunities to reach out and to be able to educate and engage with citizens in Tacoma.
Thank you. 1 minute. Do you think Tacoma residents should have vaccine passports allowing them to participate in things? Do you agree with the need for these and plan to enforce them if the state or county mandates them?
At this time, I am not agreeing to enforce that. And let's be clear, it's not my decision. That decision lies within the health department director and at the state level. And so I know that there are conversations about it. Our community, the resiliency of our community has continued to be tested over this past year and a half. And yes, I believe in vaccines, and I believe everybody should get a vaccination. But when I think about the continued stress that it puts on our small businesses, that it puts on our community, that as we think about the enforcement of that, I think about those frontline workers who have to be able to do that. I think about their safety in doing that and making those requirements. So while I want everyone to be vaccinated, because that is the way that we can beat COVID, let me be clear about that. But I do want to say that I think it's an individual choice. I just hope that everyone will choose, as they think about the impacts on our healthcare system, on our children who cannot be vaccinated, on our schools, on the work that we do in community-based organizations, on all of those things. I hope that you'll think more about those that you can affect than opposed to you individually, because this really is, when we talk about stopping COVID, this is our opportunity to do it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Homelessness continues to be a huge issue, as you know. How do you plan to help Tacoma build more housing, find housing solutions for homeless people, get all people, students, elderly, mentally ill, just plain out of luck, the help, services, and protection they need? And if you could include your view on home in Tacoma, that would be great.
Okay.
And try to answer it in 90 seconds, but I'll push to 2 minutes if you need.
Okay, thank you. So to write down home in Tacoma, I'll forget by the time I get done. So I am proud to say that during my time as mayor, we passed the Affordable Housing Action Strategy. And in that strategy, there are 4 areas in which we're focused on: creating more housing, preserving more units of housing, helping more households be able to afford housing, and reducing barriers for households who often experience homelessness or can't purchase a home. So through the AHAS plan, it is our goal to put together, to put 10,000 more units of housing in Tacoma in the next 10 years. Now, we've also, in a very difficult time, passed an additional 0.1% in our city to help bring more affordable housing to Tacoma. We know that when we add, for every dollar we spend towards affordable housing, that generates another $16 to $17 of private or other public investment in housing. So while that was a difficult decision, it was the right decision because housing is expensive. When we look at affordability just through the pandemic, it gets more expensive. So those are some ways in which we are helping to spur more affordable housing. And when I say affordable housing, I don't mean the state definition of affordable housing. I mean affordable housing at 50% or less of the median income. I talked a little bit about homelessness before. We have got to find enough shelter options in the city of Tacoma to be able to house our unhoused community. I'm really happy that through our ARPA funds, we set aside $5 million in partnership with the county and the city of Lakewood to purchase a hotel that will provide almost 100 additional units of housing. For 2 years, it will be a shelter, and in 2 years, we will convert it to permanent supportive housing. And that really is another area where the city of Tacoma lacks the support it needs for a homeless community. So we're making investments. I talked about our tiny TEM sites, our tiny micro shelter sites. And so we just need to continue to do that, to get people unhoused into a place where we can provide them with the wraparound services they need, and then build the affordable housing so that they can have a permanent place to live.
Thank you. Now take 30 seconds on Home in Tacoma, please.
Oh, please. So I believe in Home in Tacoma in its general premise. Tacoma is going to grow. We have a beautiful city here, and the more we get discovered, the more people want to live here. So we're going to grow. I believe the Planning Commission gave us every idea they had. I don't believe we should implement all of those ideas, and that's why I'm excited to hear from community as we're taking community feedback. So when I say I support Home in Tacoma, I support the idea of making sure that our city grows responsibly, but I think it needs to be tweaked. And as we hear from our community members, we will hear what is best for our communities, and then we will adopt something in the end that really fits Tacoma and really makes us grow responsibly in places where it makes sense to grow, but keeps the character of our individual neighborhoods and the character of this entire city.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So that's possible. Tacoma recently cleaned out a homeless camp on Yakima Avenue. Should we do that when there aren't places or services for everyone there to go? What is the right answer to this complicated question? And you get a minute to tell us the right answer.
So the Boise decision, which we often talk about, is the decision that said you cannot move an encampment if you don't have a place for people to go. And that is something that we continue to educate our community about, because we have to recognize that encampments are dangerous to those who are houseless and homeless, and it becomes a risk for those who live in the homes that they are camping in front of. And so street homelessness is a difficult issue, but I do believe that when we have encampments in our streets, it's hard to provide all of those wraparound services like bathrooms, like garbage collection, like a place to get a shower and wash your clothes. So I wish that we didn't have encampments, but unfortunately we don't have enough places for everyone to go. And that's why I want to continue to focus on providing places for our homeless community to go, whether that's a sanctioned encampment, whether that is a, one of our many excuse me, my brain, one of our many sites, one of our many sites with our partners who provide shelter, one of our shelter sites, whether that's one of our shelter sites, whether it's our TEM sites, but we need to be able to provide options for everyone.
Thank you. Change of subject, the climate crisis. How can and should Tacoma help combat climate change, and what will you do? Minute.
Great. Well, it was under my leadership that we signed a resolution claiming a climate emergency, and that was some years ago. But we have been working, and I'm really proud. We just had a presentation at our IPS committee on the 22nd of September, where our Sustainability Commission has now put forward a new climate action plan. Prior to that, we had an environmental action plan, and they took a couple years to redo a climate action plan that went out to community. And this is what I just talked about earlier, engaging community and what that looks like. So let's be clear, 70% of CO2 emissions come from transportation. So that's why we've got to build more compact neighborhoods. We've got to be able to have better bus service. We're bringing light rail to Tacoma. We're doing things to get people out of their cars. So that's one thing, building compact neighborhoods so that people don't have to get in their cars. We also know that transportation is the second biggest expense in a family's budget. When we talk about affordable housing, that's another way to address climate change. I think another thing that we've got to look at, and we've done a good job of, but need to continue to do, and that is looking at our tree canopy and planting more trees in our community. And then finally, when we think about climate, and we think about that, truly the Port of Tacoma is an area, and we are going through the sub-area plan right now to make sure that we can have a greener, cleaner future on our port. So bringing more green jobs to Tacoma. So those are some of the things I've worked on and will continue to work on. We've got to fight this climate. We've got to fight climate change, and we've got to leave a better place for our kids and their kids.
Thank you. So going back to the other pandemic, racism, this connects to housing, policing, jobs, and everyday life. How do you think we're doing in dealing with it, and what do you propose to help improve and equalize conditions for all? 90 seconds, sure, you can do that.
Woo, that's going to be a quick 90 seconds. Let me start by saying that we are working hard. In June of 2020, we passed Resolution 40622. And let me be clear, I don't remember a lot of resolution numbers, but I remember that one because that's our commitment to becoming an anti-racist Tacoma. That is where the council voted together 9-0 to say, we want to transform our city, and that's what we're doing. I will also tell you that I've stood up a project called Heal the Heart of Tacoma, because we know that we want this transformation effort to be led by our community. Let me be clear. Although the uprising that has happened in the last year and a half has been around policing, I have no desire to make a perfect criminal justice system. While we are focused on policing first, we need to remove all of the barriers that stop people from achieving their destiny. We need to keep people out of the criminal justice system. And a lot of that comes with economics, with education. And that's why through Heal the Heart of Tacoma, we're standing up transformation teams that are going to look at every single area in our community to talk about how we become an anti-racist city, but to also bring it together. There are so many incredible efforts. The city alone can't make Tacoma anti-racist, but together, we can do this. And so by bringing together everybody who's doing this work and creating synergy around these issues, I believe we can make Tacoma that anti-racist city. We can remove those barriers so that everyone who lives here has an opportunity to live out their destiny.
Thank you. This will be the last question. You have a minute for it. You mentioned music in your voters' pamphlet statements, and I know that you are a musician. What do you think of Tacoma's art scene? How, as mayor, can you improve it? And you might want to talk about Tacoma theaters no longer being under local control.
Great, thank you for the question. So I think I'll take the first part. I'll take the last part first. And so let me just start by saying that the day-to-day operations of the theater will be ran by someone else. And some programming. I am so grateful that Tacoma Arts Live is still in Tacoma, still will be producing many shows. And I have the utmost faith in David Fisher and his team. They've done an amazing job. And so I look forward to even increased programming and opportunity in our theater district. But Tacoma is a maker city. We have more museums per capita than a lot of cities. And so I love our art scene. I love that we have the Tacoma Art Museum, but we also have incredible artistic spaces in McMinimans and other places in our community. It's funny that today's October 1st, and this kicks off Arts Month in the city of Tacoma. So I believe we have a great art scene. Our city loves the arts because we are the only city in the country who passed 0.1% for Tacoma Creates. And I think as we continue to fund local arts organizations, that arts are going to continue to be a part of the vibe that makes Tacoma the city that it is.
Thank you. So now it's time for closing statements, and you have up to 1 minute to tell us whatever you didn't get to tell us.
Great. Well, I think I've talked about almost everything that I hear about. I will just add, really excited that we're doing Tidy Up Tacoma right now. We've seen our city get a little gritty during the pandemic, and so excited to know that another issue that we're talking about is how we clean up Tacoma. We're working on that in partnership with WSDOT to make Tacoma tidy again, and then to continue to do that and keep Tacoma clean. We also are addressing the issue of crime. We know that we've had an uptick in crime, and we've got some short-term, midterm, and long-term strategies to make Tacoma safe again. What I want to say is this: we've got a lot of work to do together. There are no easy fixes for the challenges that lie ahead. But I know as the mayor of this city, if given an opportunity to lead for 4 more years, I know at the end of those 4 years that we can make sure that Tacoma is a better city for everyone who lives here, that we remove the barriers so that everyone can fulfill their destiny and their opportunity, that we build a city that engages our youth and helps them plan for their future, while at the same time making sure that those who have worked so hard in our community for so long, that our seniors and can retire and live out their life and enjoy their retirement in this city, and everyone in between. I always say what makes Tacoma Tacoma is not just the beautiful waterfront and our incredible neighborhoods, but what makes Tacoma Tacoma are the people who choose to call this place home. And it's up to all of us to make sure that we remain that city of destiny. And as your mayor, I want to continue to do that. I ask for your vote on November 2nd. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And thank you to the League of Women Voters again for hosting this conversation today.
And thank you for participating, answering our questions, and caring about our city. The candidates for mayor of Tacoma are Steve Haverly, who was not in attendance, and Victoria Woodards. Election day is November 2nd. Thank you for watching. Now, don't forget to vote on that day. Thank you for watching. Now, please vote.